This week, we are speaking with Karla Mans Giroux. She is the head of user experience at Takeda Pharmaceuticals, and today we're going to have a conversation about her most recent global IT transformation. So, Karla, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to have this conversation.
Sure. Happy to be here, Brian. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Karla, tell us a little bit about your background.
So, I have been with Takeda for 18 years. I'm currently the head of user experience, previously head of global communications for IT. My 18 years at Takeda has been all in IT. So I've kind of worked my way up from project management into middle management. And a few years ago, several years ago actually, started to do some grassroots change management within the organization here, trying to get IT to utilize change management. And then a few years ago, they made it official and they created some positions within each of the PMOs that we had for different business functions. So I've been doing change management for almost 10 years, all here at Takeda. Some of it, as I said, as a volunteer or grassroots effort, and now officially.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. So Karla, talk to us about the reason behind your most recent global IT transformation. What was the primary reason behind that investment from the company?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we needed to really level set our infrastructure. So this was really an infrastructure project. We were trying to get to one Takeda. So we had many disparate systems. We had different acquisitions over time. And in fact, our parent company in Japan, when they first created the office in the US, firewalled it off. I mean, it was two separate companies. We shared nothing. And so we were on different versions of the same software, or we just weren't even on the same software. So after a few acquisitions, it was time, let's get everything on one platform, everybody on one Takeda, and we wanted one vision and one experience for everybody. So we created a program called Global User Experience, which was 15 plus different solutions that were being either rolled out or upgraded to the entire organization globally.
Awesome. Now sounds really, really cool. So so you were accountable for a portion of this transformation. How did you think about skill sets? Because initially you more than likely started off with, project management, and you may have had some disciplines along, but like, how did you know you needed change management, and how did you integrate change management with everybody else, with your entire team?
Yeah, so honestly, I was in charge of the change management. My counterpart, Richard Pless, was in charge of program management. So he was brought into this first, and he said, we can't do this large of a program with this many different solutions being rolled out without change management. He had been my boss when I was doing change management in the R&D business function. So he knew about change management. He knew the value of it. And he insisted on it. So that's how I got pulled into the program to do the change management portion of the program with Richard. And we really knew that even a small project requires lots of resources, because you've got to have somebody that can do change impact and, do the communications and the messaging appropriately. And you've got to have just the right message. And you've got to do a lot of different communications, because not everybody sees the one that you sent out last week. So we knew we needed an OCM lead on each of the different work streams within the program. And so we partnered with a consulting partner of ours and brought in resources to help us.
Awesome. And then, so how did you integrate change management with everybody else? Did you have a singular methodology? Did the OCM group kind of operate on its own? What was that structure like?
Yeah, the organizational change management group didn't operate in a complete silo. That never works well if we're left out of everything and go over there and do your change management thing. That's not going to work. So while we did have the team working as a team for OCM, we integrated with the program management team. And previously, in my prior role as a change manager in the PMO that I was in, we had to create a methodology. So we had created our OCM methodology and framework, and that was tightly aligned to our system development lifecycle. And so we already had that structure in place. So it was easy for us to say, okay, we're going to follow that same methodology and framework. And we worked with the program management team. We were in all of the weekly program management meetings. The OCM leads for each work stream were in all of the regular meetings with the project team. We didn't do anything without the subject matter experts, the technical guys on the project teams, because we needed to know things from them, and they needed to know how we were going to roll this out to the end users.
Awesome, awesome. So, when we say global IT transformation, that can mean a number of things. It could be one massive ERP system. It could be a set of smaller technology initiatives. How was this particular effort structured? Was it a series of smaller IT initiatives, or was it one large ERP system? Tell us about that.
It was definitely a series of smaller systems and solutions. So we were rolling out OneDrive and Windows 10 and upgrading our WebEx instance. We were also rolling out a couple of other smaller things, some security things like Proofpoint and Ping ID. So there were a lot of different small solutions that if we'd been rolling them out by themselves and nothing else was going on, it would have been, yeah, let's do some change management on that, but it wouldn't have been as huge as it was. So we kind of bundled it all together. So I think I said earlier, there were 15 plus different solutions that we were making changes to or rolling out to our end users. And so we really brought those all together and came up with a story to tell and messaging around this entire solution overview. And that's what we called the global user experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how did you approach the transformation, knowing that it was global in nature? Can you talk to us about how you approached it?
So we really looked at the timelines on each of those work streams within the overall program. So there were teams of, subject matter experts, the project manager, the OCM lead,
Yep.
The right people were getting together to decide what's the timeline and what's the project plan for this particular program or this particular project. And then we took each of those, the program manager and me as the OCM lead, we took each of those and looked at those and rolled them up into one big program plan. So we had an OCM program plan that each of the OCM leads fed into. So we could look at an individual project, or we could look at the overall program and see what was lining up at the same time, what things were going to be rolling out to the end users at the same time. And there were a lot of things that were hitting people at the same time. So we needed to manage that carefully, see if that made sense. And then where we could, we would bundle our communications so that we weren't sending you a message, dear end user, this is going to happen to you on Monday, and oh, now it's Tuesday, this is going to happen too. So we wanted to make sure people knew the overall story of the whole program and when each of the individual projects would be impacting them.
Yeah. And this was a global project in nature. I believe we were talking before. Japan was involved. How did you manage the stakeholders in Japan? Can you walk us through that one?
Sure. Yeah, it was definitely different to do OCM in Japan. This was a global project, and Takeda has locations in probably 80 plus countries. We have 3,000 employees, and so it was very large, and it was a challenge to do this for Europe, US, Latin America, and Japan. Japan, much more challenging because the culture is so different. There's a hierarchical structure that we really had to look at and work with. So where in the US and in Europe, people are willing to say, yeah, I'm going to jump on board and I'm going to do that and I'm going to tell people about it. In Japan, the employee needs to be told by their manager that this is your responsibility. You need to do this. You need to attend this. You need to, tell other people about it. So the overall program, the OCM program for the global user experience, led us to build a large change network. And we call these people our technology ambassadors. And we did have people from Japan volunteering to do that, but there were less volunteers that felt that they had responsibility for carrying the message forward to others. And so we did attempt to build some executive sponsorship to get those executives to nominate the champions. Yep. And while that was workable in some areas, it wasn't in all, and we didn't get complete buy-in. It was a little bit of a challenge to get IT leadership, to get business leaders to do this. There was just a lot going on at Takeda overall, and they looked at this as just one thing that IT was doing. So the challenge was there. It was real. The executive sponsorship for our Change Network wasn't as good as we would have liked to have it. But in Japan, we had to work a little bit more closely with our IT colleagues over there to support them, get them to understand what was going on, ask them for their help. And when it came to the non-IT Change Network members, some of them really embraced it and would carry it forward, and others were there really to hear for themselves what was going on. We did hire an OCM lead to sit in Japan. So with our consulting partner, we had someone there in Japan working with a member of my team who sat in Japan as well. And they really had to work hard to get people on board. But we did establish good communications with the IT team there and with some of our business partners there. And we did do a lot of groundwork to get those people on board with us.
Awesome, awesome. And this was a multi-year initiative. So,
yeah.
So we talked about this before. Branding was really, really important. Can you walk us through the initial approach to really brand this particular, transformation, and how did you manage, keeping this initiative relevant in the organization, for multiple years?
Yeah, it was a challenge, and I think we started in 2017. It might have even been 2016. I can't even remember now. Definitely multi-year program, big program. We knew it was going to take a while. We knew we weren't going to start rolling out Windows 10 until, excuse me, until a little bit later in the program, and we knew that it would take us a while to roll out Windows 10 to all 30,000 people. So when we looked at this and we realized that we did have so many different solutions that we wanted to wrap up into this one program, we looked at what was our story going to be, what were we going to tell people, and we came up with global user experience, one vision, one experience. And we had sort of three categories where we put the solutions into productivity, collaboration, and protection. So that was productivity tools that would allow people to work easier and faster and really give people mobility and accessibility. The collaboration, making sure that people could stay connected no matter where they were, working together more effectively. And the protection was really all about safeguarding, those security things to protect not only Takeda, but the individual as well. So we wrapped that up into one sort of story that we could tell. We did a lot of visuals around it. We had a couple of really key ones that shared our vision and what that meant to the end users, how that would impact them. And then we came up with kind of a solution map, if you will, a roadmap that said, here are the different solutions that we're going to roll out. And a piece of that was a timeline to give them a general idea. And timelines made everybody really nervous. They didn't want to publish timelines and commit to, we're going to do this on this date, because God forbid things might change. And things did change, and we would do updates to that timeline. But we really managed to come up with a really good story to tell people. But I will tell you one thing that went wrong with it when we decided to call it global user experience. Little did we realize that not everybody in the organization thought they were global. So if they were part of our U.S. business unit, they're like, I'm not global. I don't need to pay attention to that. Like, no, the company is global. This isn't about, you being global and only global, people need to know this. This is something for everybody to know, because Takeda is a global organization. So that was a little bit of a misstep that we didn't realize until it was too late. But hearing that anecdotally, we were able to respond and go, wait a minute, even if you're not in a global role, this still pertains to you. So please start listening to us. So.
Yeah, no, that's actually really, really good. Great tips. How did you measure ROI, or what metrics did you use throughout the program to measure success?
Yeah, so I always said we were a little bit immature in our organizational change management structure from the measurement perspective because OCM was so new for Takeda. What we were measuring throughout this program was some of those things that we could get hard numbers on. How many people are using OneDrive, right?
Yeah.
So we would constantly look at those numbers as we rolled things out. How many people are attending those OneDrive training sessions that we are making available to them? Because everybody says we got to have, live training, we got to have training, and then nobody attends the training.
Yeah.
So we tried to provide people not only live training for a short duration, but also here's the recordings and you can always go back to it. And here's things from Microsoft that you can utilize. But so we measured those hard numbers that we could tell by usage. And then we did surveys of our champions, our Change Network, our tech ambassadors, I should say,
Yeah.
and, to get a read from them on how things were going. But we couldn't survey or get a read on it like for the whole organization. We weren't really allowed to do a lot of surveying of the entire 30,000 plus population.
Yeah.
So it was a definite challenge for us for measurement.
Yeah. So Karla, if you had to advise someone who was in your shoes at another organization and they're at the very, very beginning of an initiative like this, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you would recommend to them?
So lessons learned,
Yeah.
err on the side of over communicating. When people are being pulled in so many different directions, and I'm sure every other organization is just as busy as Takeda is, right, with as many changes going on throughout the entire organization. People don't always pay attention, certainly not to the first communication that you send. So you need to err on the side of over communicating because you want to make sure that if they didn't see the first message, they see the second or the third one. And so repetition was important. And we knew we had to balance that because we didn't want it to be noise that then made people go like, I'm so tired of hearing about this. We had a lot of different channels that we used to communicate. So we had Yammer. We had, SharePoint. We would put it on the SharePoint site in news articles. We would send it out in the company electronic newsletter. We would do digital signage on the campuses where that was available. So we had a lot of different ways to reach people. And the Technology Ambassador Network, one of the key ways, because we know people will listen when somebody's telling them about it. So we really encouraged our technology ambassadors to carry our message forward in team meetings and share it with their colleagues who would listen to them better than they would listen to some generic global user experience at takeda.com email address.
Yeah. So pretty much leveraging the change agent network and being mindful about communications.
Yeah. Yeah, and also one big lesson learned is less is more. So we constantly went back and reworked our messages, our communications, because the more you write, the less they read. Yeah. And it takes a lot more work to write concisely. So it's really easy to just brain dump and say everything you want to say. The hard work comes in trying to say it very concisely. Mm-hmm. So we spent more time later after we figured this out that we really needed to be very short, very concise, tell people exactly what they need to know and give them a link to the, the rest of the information that for those few people that want a lot of detail and have time to read it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so Karla, thank you so much for carving time out your day to have this conversation. We really, really appreciate it. And for those of you on the line, thank you for taking time out of your day as well. This concludes our webcast.